The Bible's most cursed mountain, Mount Hermon. Some places in the world feel sacred, hallowed ground where heaven and earth seem a little closer. But other places, they feel different. They're like scars on the landscape, reminders of rebellion, darkness, and ancient wrongs. And in that dark regard, one mountain seems to stand apart. A place with such a profoundly unholy reputation that its story is tied to a rebellion against God himself. This isn't just a story about rocks and snow. It's about a spiritual wound that has festered for millennia. A place that some believe served as a gateway, not for the divine, but for the profane. This is the story of Mount Hermon, a mountain with a legendary curse. What if one of the most pivotal events in ancient lore didn't happen in a holy city, but on a mountain summit with a dark reputation? A place that legend says is named for the very oath that sealed a rebellion against heaven. This is the story of Mount Hermon, where an ancient text claims 200 fallen angels made a pact that would corrupt humanity with knowledge it was never meant to possess. Section 1. The Pact on the Peak. To understand Mount Hermon's sinister reputation, we have to travel back to a time before the Great Flood. And our main guide for this part of the journey isn't the book of Genesis, but another ancient and hugely influential text, the Book of Enoch. While it's not part of the official biblical canon for most traditions, its stories were well known to early Christians and New Testament writers, and it attempts to fill in the gaps of the strange story found in Genesis chapter 6. According to Enoch, a group of 200 angels, known as the Watchers, were sent to earth to watch over humanity. But as they looked down upon the daughters of men, their mission was twisted by lust. Their leader, an angel named Shemyaza, worried that he alone might have to pay the price for this great sin. His followers quickly put his fears to rest. In a moment of absolute rebellion, the 200 Watchers bound themselves together with a terrible oath and mutual curses. The spot they chose for this unholy agreement was the summit of a great mountain. And according to this story, that's how the mountain got its name. They called it Mount Hermon, which some scholars believe is linked to the Hebrew word for oath or curse, forever tying the mountain to their transgression. It was here, on this very peak, that they supposedly descended, abandoned their sacred duty, and began a rebellion that would change human history forever. Section 2. The Poison of Forbidden Knowledge. The Watchers' sin wasn't just their forbidden union with human women. Their rebellion unleashed a flood of forbidden knowledge onto the world, twisting human culture from the ground up. These weren't gifts of wisdom, they were heavenly secrets humanity was never meant to have. One angel, named Azazel, taught mankind how to make swords, shields, and breastplates, introducing warfare on a scale never seen before. He also taught women how to make jewelry and use cosmetics, inciting vanity and deception. The Book of Enoch tells us the world was instantly changed. Great impiety and promiscuity followed, and humanity's ways became corrupt. Other Watchers introduced other dark arts. They taught sorcery, incantations, and how to use roots and herbs for magic spells. They revealed the signs of the sun, earth, and moon, not for understanding God's creation, but for astrology and divination, turning human eyes away from the Creator. This wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate act of sabotage designed to sever humanity's connection with God. And it worked. The world filled with lawlessness so deep that it was crying out for a divine reset. Section 3. The Birth of the Giants. The union between the Watchers and human women produced something the world had never seen. Genesis 6 calls them the Nephilim. The Book of Enoch describes them as a race of powerful, ravenous giants. These were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown, mentioned in the Bible, but their fame was born of terror. These giants, the stories say, consumed everything humanity produced. When that wasn't enough, they turned on people themselves, devouring them and drinking their blood. They ravaged the animal kingdom, sinning against birds, beasts, and fish. The whole earth groaned under their violence, and the cries of the dying rose to heaven, pleading for deliverance from the monstrous children of the fallen angels. The legacy of these giants became deeply embedded in the folklore of the lands around Mount Hermon. The territory of Bashan, in the mountain's shadow, was known as the Land of Giants. Its king, Og, was called one of the last of the Rephates, another name for these ancient giants. Later traditions would even connect other biblical giants, like Goliath, to this same lineage, though the Bible itself does not make that direct link. The Nephilim were the living, breathing proof of the Watchers' sin, and their destructive reign was the final straw that set the stage for the Great Flood. Section 4. The Gates of Hell. For centuries, Mount Hermon remained a symbol of this ancient legend. Its high places were hubs for pagan worship, with altars built to the god Baal. But the mountain's dark spiritual legacy would face its greatest challenge thousands of years later, with the arrival of Jesus. At the base of Mount Hermon was a city called Caesarea Philippi. In Jesus' time, it was a hotbed of paganism. A large cave carved into the rock face, there was a center for worshiping the Greek god Pan. Locals called this cave the Gates of Hades, believing it was a literal gateway to the underworld where gods would retreat in the winter and emerge in the spring. It was a place steeped in dark spirituality, sitting right in the shadow of the mountain where the Watchers were said to have descended. And it was here, of all places, that Jesus brought his disciples. Standing before this pagan stronghold, he asked them, "Who do you say that I am?" Peter gave the famous answer, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." In response, Jesus made one of the most powerful statements in Scripture. He said, "And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it." This wasn't just a casual remark, it was a strategic declaration of war. Right at the supposed gateway of demonic power, at the foot of the mountain symbolizing angelic rebellion, Jesus declared that his church would ultimately crush the forces of darkness. He was standing on enemy turf and announcing its defeat. Section 5. The Divine Reclamation. Just 6 days later, Jesus did something even more dramatic. He took Peter, James, and John and led them up a high mountain. While tradition often points to Mount Tabor, many modern scholars argue that Mount Hermon is a much stronger candidate, given its towering 9,200-foot height and its immediate proximity to Caesarea Philippi. If they are right, then what happened next is spiritually staggering. On the very same mountain where fallen angels supposedly swore an oath to corrupt the world, Jesus was transfigured. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became dazzling white. He was joined by two of the greatest figures in Jewish history, Moses and Elijah. Then a voice from a cloud of glory, the voice of God, spoke, saying, "This is my Son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him." This was the ultimate act of divine reclamation. On the same peak where rebellious angels brought darkness, the Son of God revealed his divine glory. Where a curse was sworn, a blessing was proclaimed. The Transfiguration was a direct and powerful answer to the ancient rebellion of the Watchers. It was a statement that Christ's authority overrules all others. It sanctified the cursed ground, turning a monument of sin into a beacon of divine glory, and showing that no place is beyond the reach of God's redemptive power. The story of Mount Hermon is a powerful reminder that for many, the spiritual world is real, and the battle between good and evil is written into our geography. The layers of history and mystery on this one mountain are incredible. What do you think about all this? Do you believe the influence of the Watchers' forbidden knowledge can still be seen in the world today? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoy exploring these hidden corners of history and faith, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more. Mount Hermon carries a fascinating double legacy. It's the infamous site where, according to ancient tradition, the Watchers descended and unleashed chaos onto the world. It's the legendary origin point of the Nephilim and a flood of knowledge that scarred humanity. Yet it's also the sacred site where many believe Jesus revealed his divine glory, reclaiming that same ground for the kingdom of heaven. It is both the mountain of the curse and the mountain of the transfiguration. It stands as a timeless symbol of a spiritual war, a war between the forces that seek to corrupt humanity and the divine light that seeks to redeem it. It reminds us that even in the darkest of places, the light can and will break through.